Record. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers. In all transparency, I'm sort of already telling a lie. The show has been so popular that it's no longer just 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers. It's grown into the second series of those episodes, and we're probably now around this our 60th or 65th conversation. I originally thought to do 50. I thought it would take me a lot longer to have it happen. Within about a week and a half, I had 50 conversations happen. I'm having conversations every hour on the hour with people. Some days I have a little less. But the interest in having a space for people to be able to be loved and accepted, listened to and heard, and acknowledged and validated has been so powerfully beautiful that I just want to continue doing it. It's touched my heart also to hear people and to watch what happens in this room. It's like a magic room. People come in one way and go out another way, and it's really just amazing to watch. No one's teaching anybody anything, no one's doing anything, but just holding the space for people to be themselves and having them become themselves is such a beautiful, beautiful process. Originally, this was meant to be a trip that I was going to take around the world. In my book, The Mosaic, it's a story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day. And he asks the adults, "Where are my parents? Where'd they go?" And the adults tell him they're in a place called heaven. Don't worry, they're in a place called heaven. And the boy immediately says, "I want to find that place because I want that unconditional love that I had with my parents. I miss that. I want that more than anything." And he set out in search of the place called heaven. But the people he met were not the rabbis and the priests and the ministers and the shamans and the medicine men and women. They weren't the Aborigines elders or the swamis or the gurus. They were common, ordinary people. They were a road worker and a trash man. They were a blind woman and a homeless guy. They were a street artist and a juice man. And he wondered, why am I meeting these people? Like, what are these people going to show me about heaven? But he heard this voice say, "You're with them, sit with them for a little bit and just be with them and listen to their stories." In every single case, when he sat with them and he heard their stories, what he realized is the person he initially came upon was not at all the person he was sitting with now. We hear it all along. You can't judge a book by its cover. And yet so many of us judge a book by its cover. We look at the outside presentation of how a person is and we think that's who they are. But when we spend a few minutes just listening to them, we hear a completely different story. So when Mo, the main character in the book, heard over and over again and saw over and over again that the person he saw was not at all who they are, he wondered if he saw anything correctly or if he saw everything the way he saw it. And so he wondered, what would happen if I got out of my own way? What would happen if I slid myself to the left and I just looked at the world? What would I see? And at that moment, he looked to his right and he saw a monk unzipping the sky. And the monk invited him in through the gap in the sky into a parallel reality where he met the wise one who was the keeper of the Mosaic. I'm going to pause there because that's enough of a trailer for the book. If you like it, I'd love you to buy it. If you don't like it, more than happy for you not to. But that's what's happening in this room. That's what I've decided to do because COVID-19 came and I couldn't go around the world. So I've invited people to come into this room so that we can sit with each other and we can really see each other. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm very moved by what you've been saying. Of course, I'm okay. I'm more than okay. Keep going.
Okay. I have the honor of meeting with you for the first time, Sandhan. Am I saying it correctly?
Sandhan.
Sandhan. And Sandhan, I want to welcome you into the room. I'm touched by the fact that you're moved by what you heard.
Oof.
Tell me how you are and what moved you.
Oh my goodness. I think I might need to just wipe my nose very briefly after that.
Okay.
I almost felt like, I feel like I just like a moment of silence, if that's okay with you, that we just
Absolutely.
pause, and that anybody who's listening to this, we just close our eyes for a second and take a pause, because what you said was, to me, that was so very deep, and I just need to gather myself a second.
Sure.
And I won't make that too long, because some people find silence incredibly uncomfortable. But
Hmm.
I hardly know where to begin. For one thing, I definitely would like to read your book.
Thank you.
It touched on so many levels. For one thing, just before we started, and I had never met you before, and you told me that this would be a conversation as if somebody had met for the first time at a party and got to know each other. So it's the first time I've seen a photo of you, but I looked at you, I was like, wow, amazing beard. And you said, I'm often described as a cross between a wise man, I thought rabbi, but a wise man, and somebody who lives on the street. And I said, isn't that the truth? That wise men, that people who live on the street are often very wise people. And then you've gone into telling us about your story, the Mosaic, and how the most ordinary people have the most to teach us, and the whole ethos behind why you're doing these conversations. And likewise, when you said 50, I'm like, well, that's not going to be 50. That's going to be like 1,050.
Yes.
This
Yeah.
is like an ongoing thing,
Yeah.
because, again, somebody said to me the other day, I'd like to interview you, and are you happy talking about yourself? I'm like, hey, yeah. I mean, we all want to talk about the stuff that's percolating inside, and we all want to be seen for who we are. And some
Yes.
people find that much harder to express. But everybody wants to be loved and accepted exactly as we are. And right now, with what's going on in the world, there has never been a more important time, in my opinion, for us to look at each other as brothers and sisters, and the whole thing of oneness. That has been my entire life journey.
I love that. I love that.
And I need to pause again and blow my nose.
That's okay. We've had we've had lots of things happen in this room. And this room is a place where anything can happen. So feel free to do whatever it is you need to do.
No, that's fine. I'm good.
Um, one of the reasons why this is so important to me is that it's hard to feel oneness with strangers
Hmm.
because we sometimes are scared of what we don't know. And with fear, we can't allow ourselves to open up. But if we are given the space to open up by someone who isn't scared, then I'm just wondering what will happen. Like, for me, these conversations have been so beautiful, but they're still from a population of people that would be roughly in my wingspan. I mean, there have been some people that have stretched my wingspan a little bit, but not much. And because of social media just giving us the people that are somewhat like us as our reference points, I really want to grow now into the areas of the world which are not like me at all,
Hmm.
which are communities of hatred, communities of supremacy, communities of vile, and to see if the same theory of what I'm doing with people of unlike mine, but like mine still, if it would still have effect. If people, no matter what span of life they're in, would feel acknowledged and validated for what they believe, would feel listened to and heard, would feel loved and accepted. Doesn't mean I agree with them.
Hmm.
Most of those people I probably won't agree with. But in my 65 years of life, no one's ever said to me, Danny, you must agree with me. When they felt loved and accepted, when they felt listened to and heard, when they felt acknowledged and validated, it wasn't important if I agreed with them or not. That was enough. Your thoughts?
Oh, couldn't agree more. I mean, oh, now with everything that's going on, it's in your face, isn't it? You
Yeah.
cannot escape that thing. And I think that's almost part of what's happening for us to rise in consciousness, is that people, and I'd say like ourselves, I'd like to think that when I see somebody writing on one of my posts, which is very rare because, like you said, the wingspan is, I have people like me around me, and if they're not like me, they don't want to comment, they don't want to be interested in what I have to say. But when I do see something like that, I do try to rise above it and hold a mirror and maybe another point of view, but I never try to make that person wrong, because the life-changing thing is, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? I don't give a rat's about being right, but I know what's right for me.
Yeah.
I know where I sit, and sometimes, like you say, I have to expand and go, oh, that's an interesting perspective. Hadn't thought of it like that. And that's what helps me grow. But by and large, I'm here to do what you do. I'm here to help people really feel that they are okay who they are, and to create a container or a tree under which they can sit and know that I love them no matter what. I don't necessarily like them, but I don't have to like everybody, and I don't have to hang with the people I don't like, and I don't have to make myself wrong for not liking the people I don't like. But I can still see that they're all part of the greater whole. We're all here. We're all like your mosaic. We're all pieces of a tapestry. And I listened one time to Anita Mujani, who you probably heard of.
Yes. Yes.
The very, very early stages. I went to her book launch, actually, the very first book launch that happened in Australia with Hay House. And she talked about how she saw everything, especially when she went to the other side, as a great big tapestry. Everybody has their part to play. The people who trigger us, the people who provoke us, the people who teach us incredible life lessons. If you can kind of rise above all that stuff and just, I'm a big picture kind of a person. I'm not very good with the little itsy bitsy details, but when I look at the whole thing, I've said for 50 years, there's never been a better time to be alive. And people look at me like really freaking crazy. And then I just listened to the amazing Del Bigtree talking with Sasha Stone yesterday. People who maybe some of your listeners have never heard of, but that Del Bigtree, he's like one of my heroes. And he's saying the same thing, that this is a moment where we can go through, he didn't say this word exactly, but it's like we're going through a portal. And right now it sucks. Right now it's excruciating for many people, and they're triggered, and the mob, what's like there's an expression, is it like the mob is rising right now and they're screaming for blood. It's almost like the old lady sitting by the guillotine. We're going through that again, watching the heads roll into the basket. People are baying for blood. I'm not one of them. I'm just not one of them. And I'm watching this like an observer, going, whew, okay, this is interesting stuff. And I don't know where it's going to land, but
So for people who would like that to be their reality, but it's not, what would you suggest they might be able to do to move from a place where they can't get out of that into the place where they can watch it?
Self-inquiry. It's like, we're moving to a place where I am urging people to take radical responsibility. It's easy. It's just so easy to blame everything on the outside, and it's this and it's that, and it's, the virus and it's Trump or whatever it is. I mean, I'm in Australia, but you can find a gazillion things to blame it on. But what am I feeling right now? Most people are so freaking afraid of their feelings. I mean, this is the thing that comes up quite often. My mother was a refugee, and I was born in the UK, and then she migrated to Australia, and she was elderly, and she, went through extreme adventures and stuff that happened to her during the war and so forth. And one day I was sitting with her, long story short, and I was helping her fill out a questionnaire. There was like a university was, asking people of various ages to answer questions so that they could put all the data in a computer and come up with some magnificent results. Anyway, we got this questionnaire, was a health thing. It was about physical ailments and do you need help at home, and you know, do you suffer from this? And then they came to the sort of emotional, mental questions. And one of the questions was, how often in your life have you asked yourself the question, who am I and what am I here for? She was like, oh, never. I've never asked myself this question.
Wow.
And I was like, okay,
wow.
this is why you and I have so much difficulty bridging the gap, because this has been my life's purpose. Who am I and what am I here for? How can I help you to discover your essence? How can I help you to be at peace with who you are? And, you know, we all contain the dark and the light. Everybody has a killer in them. Everybody has a thief in them. Everybody has a, you know, we go, oh, no, I'm a light worker. You know, and I mean, I'm rambling a little bit, but certainly how to help somebody find peace. For one thing is meditation, but most people are completely incapable of, you know, I'm not talking this kind of meditation, but self-inquiry. What am I feeling right now? God, I'm really freaking angry. Great, okay, be with the anger. Go and kick a cushion, do some cathartic meditations. I know a shitload of cathartic meditations that somebody can go and do, but that starts to clean the swamp. It's like the inner swamp. We've got an outer swamp there, but people are full of the inner shit.
Yeah.
So
you lobbed it over the net a while back, and I just want to lob it back so you can tell people, what is your purpose and what are you here for?
I'm just here to find my joy. I mean, I think that so many people, they go, I need to find my purpose. Like, you know, oh my God, I don't know what my purpose is. Do what the frick makes you happy, and don't do more of it. Find what makes you happy and do more of it, because happy people make more happy people. You know, the world has been so squeezed into a box of people doing stuff they don't enjoy. They have jobs they don't enjoy. They're married to people they don't enjoy. They have children they don't enjoy. They live in places they don't enjoy. And I know that's very easy to generalize. And somebody said, well, it's okay for you. But it just starts with the little things. Take time off. Go and read a book or watch. I mean, I like at the moment to watch. I'm part of a Facebook group called A Smile a Day. They just go in there and laugh. I mean, I watched a TED talk last night on a guy who talked about how he responds to spam emails. You know, we all get them. You know, like, I'm from Nigeria and you have just won. Oh, sorry,
Right.
wrong accent. You know, you've just been awarded $100,000 left by Nelson Mandela's widow. But he talked about how he responds to all these people, and then he did a whole TED talk. I watched that last night. I was absolutely rolling around.
I love that. I love it.
Laugh more, have more fun, play more, dance, listen to great music, especially now. Turn off the bloody TV.
So,
I don't own a TV.
tell me, what makes you happy?
What makes me happy?
Yeah.
What makes me happy? I love hanging with my grandkids. I mean, I don't even know, it's a strange question. I mean, happiness is a state, it's a choice. I'm happy. I'm happy. Things piss me off from time to time, but they just blow through. I don't need to go and do stuff to make myself happy, because I've just come to a place in my life where I'm at peace.
Have you always been there, or have you come to a place in your life now where that's happened?
Oh my God, no, I was like an angry little mofo. I mean, I grew up I'm a Jewish child. My family were Jewish. And it was a very strange environment, because we were kind of like fair weather Jews that we would drive to the synagogue on holidays and,
Right.
you know, kind of do the thing that so that everybody could see you were doing the thing. But I grew up probably like you in the 60s, and revolution was in the air, and
Yes.
that kind of environment was too small for me. So I just exploded, and, you know, the drug culture, and I went to university and failed miserably at study, but majored in, you know, partying and having a good time. And then I went to India. That's very condensed, but I came under the umbrella of Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh or Osho, and that completely turned my life around. I had a tarot reading from a guy who said, you know, oh, you're looking for a master. And I'm like, yeah, I want to learn astrology and Ouija boards and, you know, the stuff. And he said, and you're going to meet the master and it will change your life forever. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But it did.
Wow.
It just, I went and therapized myself until, I guess I wouldn't say I was squeaky clean, but I'm pretty much wrung out.
Yeah.
I you know, this thing, I tried to fix myself, but I don't think it was about fixing myself. It was just fixing my relationship with my environment. And that has changed everything.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I want to change it around so we talk a little bit quicker, okay?
Quicker.
I want to create a lightning round, which I suck at, by the way, but the first few questions will be able to be quick, okay? And then we'll allow it to open up a little more. Are you a dog person or a cat person?
Cat.
Coffee or tea?
Either.
Neither?
Either. Both.
Either. Okay, either. Milkshake or smoothie?
Oh, neither.
Neither. Neither. Junk food?
You say neither. I say neither.
Junk food or organic?
Oh, I think life's about balance. I like the odd burger from time to time.
Okay. Weights or cardio?
Do I look like I exercise a lot? Oh dear. These are challenging questions. I can see I'm spreading the middle path, aren't I?
Well, that's good. All right, let's go to something that might be easier. Those are normally the easy ones. So let's go to the, would you consider yourself someone who's in the box or out of the box?
Out. Oh, there is no box, eh?
Which one? Out of the box or there is no box?
There is no box.
Wow. I know both of these are really important, but I'm asking you right now, for you at this moment in time, which is more relevant to you? Is it more important for you to be able to speak your voice and be heard? Or is it more important for you to create a platform where other people can speak their voice and you listen to them?
Oh God, do I have to choose?
Yeah.
Holy moly. Probably the second one then.
The second one? Cool. How come?
Because I think, like, analytically, that if I create a platform for other people to do that, there's still space for me to be heard within that. Like, I have a lot to say, obviously. You know, you've heard I have a lot to say, but I think that we all have a lot.
Come on. I don't.
Oopsie. No, we have a lot to say. I actually have a platform for people to be able to speak their truth. So I do have a platform where people can do that.
What is that?
Maybe we should talk about that down the track. Let's keep going with your questions.
Okay. Do you feel like someone who fits into the world, or have you always felt that you're a little different?
I've always been a misfit. But then I found a whole group of misfits and I fitted in with the misfits.
I love that. Someone said to me, oh, I fit into the world perfectly, but nobody in the world fits in. So I fit into a world where nobody fits in. I like that.
Pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking you were saying.
With Osho, everybody was a misfit. That's what we all had in common. That's why he called us in, because nobody fitted. It was like, I'm looking for a place where I can be me.
Yeah. Do you feel you've operated more from your head in your life or more from your heart?
My heart.
And how has that been for you?
Ooh, it's created a life of ups and downs, and you know, it's been an interesting learning curve. If you go from the perspective of everything is a learning experience, I was like, whoa, I've got a lot of scar tissue, but yeah, no. I'm not, when I've analyzed, I just get into paralysis, because then I'm like, no.
Yeah. Would you say you're a leader or a follower?
A leader.
So let me dive into that a little bit.
Oh God. I felt a bit ashamed actually when I was like, oh God, yeah, but I'm a leader.
Why did you
But I
feel
would,
why did you feel ashamed?
because I suppose it depends what you mean by leadership. And it's a big issue right now, leadership. What is leadership? And for me, leadership is creating more leaders, which then comes back to your question of which is more important, being the person who's out there saying something, or the person who gives the space to other people to feel comfortable to speak their truth.
Yeah.
And that's what leadership for me is about, or the platform is now more than ever.
Yeah. So part of the reason why I like this question is because when I look around the world, this is a long question, but I would love your feedback on it. When I look around the world, I see a lot of people who tell me they're leaders, and it might just be because I'm drawing again from this bank of people that are responding to me, and I might not be connecting with other people who are not, which I will certainly try and expand my reach. But I look into a world, I don't see many leaders. I see a lot of people who say they're leaders, but I don't see a lot of real leaders. The quickest and most beautiful way to look at it is through the lowest hanging fruit of politics in America.
Mm.
It's the easiest way, and I don't really care which side of the fence a person's on. But when I look at the people that we have elected to be our leaders, I don't see a lot of them leading. I see them establishing a silo of belief, and within that belief silo, they are following what that silo says, even if they personally don't agree with some of the things that they're doing. And I believe, from my own point of view, that a leader has the courage to stand up to their own silo and say, if they're pro-Trump, you know, this stuff has been really good that you've done. This stuff, not so good. And we just can't continue to do the stuff that's not good. Let's focus on doing the stuff that we really do good and figure out how we can get help with the stuff we don't do good. If you're in the anti-Trump camp, those guys don't give the dog a bone. There's nothing he's done good. And as soon as he comes around the corner, they hit him with a baseball bat. And he's just spends his whole time protecting himself, saying, "But I did something good, you know. There's something like, look, I did this and I did this. When all you guys said don't do that, I did this and it was good." And I don't see anybody from that camp either saying, "Hold it, that's not really true. He has done some things good that are good. Let's give the dog a bone and let's work together to try and build something that will unify us and bring us together." First of all, what are your thoughts on the story that I just painted for you?
Well, as I'm not in America, I view your politics from afar. So the first thing I have to say is I'm neither side. But when Trump was elected, I'm like, really? You're kidding me?
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, this is Ronald Reagan all over again. We've got a movie star, you know, a TV star, reality TV star in the White House. This to me was like, is this where the mind of America is, that we, you know, you might as well have Kim Kardashian in the White House. And over the last months, I've had to see that there's probably much more to him than meets the eye. You know, I think he presents himself as a moron and an idiot, when actually, you know, from what I'm doing in sort of alt circles and watching stuff going on, that he's probably much more canny than we think. But going back to your leadership question, I think that you've painted a very accurate picture, but we're in transition right now where leaders are starting to come forward. And, you know, again, listening to Dell late last night, was saying, you know, I don't care if they muzzle me. I don't care if they censor me, because there's 100 more of me coming up. Now, you know, they were calling out the men last night and saying, you know, where are the men who are standing up for what's right, especially in Australia? I mean, I don't know what's going on over there too much in the States, but, you know, in Victoria, they've got people walking around, you know, with the mask. Sasha Stone last night was saying that there was a guy in Bali where he lives, you know, a big brawny Australian, you know, well stacked, obviously does his weights and stuff, walking around in a mask, and he nearly spat at Sasha for not wearing a mask. But I mean, holy shit. You know, if you do your research, you will know that the mask is really the least of our issues. And they were calling out the guys to stand up and say, no, it's time to be counted. This is our transition time. So, no, we don't have the leaders yet. But I firmly, if I didn't believe they were coming, I'd just go and crawl into a hole. You know, and my leadership has come to the point where, you know, I didn't like to sort of speak out on social media. And my daughter said, oh, Mum, you know, can you cool it down a bit because the neighbours are Facebook friends with you? And I'm like, okay, I'll just unfriend them. I can't be silent anymore, and I don't think any of us can be silent anymore. And I encourage everybody, you know, baby steps. If it's uncomfortable, just talk to your neighbour about what you're passionate about, or maybe not your neighbour, but you know, just we got to get together on this, everybody, because otherwise we're going down, you know, hell in a handbasket.
Yeah. I Let me lob something else over the net because it's just my own crazy way of seeing the world.
Go.
As um, perilous as some people want to paint the scenario, I see it as our house is being remodeled. And it really is nothing more than a remodel of a house. And when we remodel our house, there's a certain period of time where we tear down some walls, where we redo the floors, where we change the dimensions of the room, where the steps are no longer where they used to be, where we step onto what we think is going to be a step and it's now solid. It's just a flat surface because we moved the step back 3 steps. And we are like blind men walking in a remodeled area which hasn't really been remodeled yet. And it isn't, nobody laments the remodeling of a house and says the house is in trouble. It's uncomfortable for a few months because that's just what's going to happen. Of course, you have to tear down some things in order for some new things to be put up, but the plan's there. The world knows what it wants. This world, with us or without us, will figure itself out. And it's just going through its remodel. There's no real danger except the danger of us thinking that there's danger. Your thoughts?
Well, it reminded me of my days in India, and I had you know, I was friends with lots of therapists and stuff, and Wadud was one of the guys, and he used to make an analogy about how, you know, traditional therapy would imagine that you had an attic and it was just full of crap, and there was all sorts of dirty stuff in the attic, and you'd take it all out and you'd put it downstairs and you'd clean the attic and you'd dust it all off and you'd bring everything back and stick it all back in the attic again. That's one way of looking at what's going on. Your analogy is, let's take the shit out, excuse me for swearing, but hey, take it down, make a huge bonfire, select the stuff that you like, that's good, that's useful, that you're going to use again, take that back upstairs, and then stick a freaking burner to the lot that's outside that we don't need. And
Yeah.
that's how I like to look at my world, in a way.
Yeah,
In
but
small, you know.
it's anybody who's remodeled a house knows how uncomfortable it is for a few months or 6 months or a year, however big the house is,
If you're
however
living
big
in
the
it at
remodel.
the same time.
Yeah, if you're living and we're living in the house we're remodeling right now,
Yeah.
and so it's uncomfortable. Do you think people are more similar than they are different, or more different than they are similar?
I think we all have a massive amount of commonalities, and we tend to overlook that. We all want to be loved. We all want to have, you know, to be safe, to feel secure. I mean, you know, to have enough to eat.
Yeah.
You know, we're all the same in that, and our conditioning has made us turn against each other, and they're ramping up the volume right now.
It's so interesting because part of the reason I'm doing this show also is to gather research. And some of the things that I thought I would find, I'm not finding. But in answer to that question, again, it could be the pool of people that are replying to me. Overwhelming majority of people are saying we are more similar than we are different. And I've had people from both sides of all camps, not just the political camp. And so I wonder, if we feel we're more similar than we are different, why we spend so much time focusing on our differences rather than our similarities.
Who's
And yet,
who's that we? Who's that we? It's like human beings, or
yeah,
it's just
the world at large. Look at the world outside you.
it's
Look at the
again
world
this,
inside you.
isn't it the transition into higher consciousness though? I mean, I hate to use
Maybe.
that word, but there are a lot of people who are living in tribe mentality, who are the herd, and my gang, and I mean, I haven't experienced that too much, but I certainly did in a way, even with Osho. We were the chosen ones, and everybody else was an idiot because they weren't working on themselves and they didn't have consciousness, and which is why I get very jumpy about even using that word. But there are some people who plainly are a little bit dense in the head. They just, they believe everything that they read, and they think that, the government is out to save them and protect them. And then there's a whole bunch of other people who are going, oh, maybe not so fast. But we're in this transition period. So what do? You look at them and try. I mean, I also balk at people who get very patronizing and kind of, oh, they're just sheep. I've got that part in me. Sometimes I can't resist. I go onto Facebook and I just have to say something because that's my way of expelling it somewhere. And, I just have to do it, but it's not necessarily that kind.
Yeah.
But, I don't tend to focus on the differences. I hope sometimes by holding up a mirror that somebody might at one point just have a moment where they go, okay, that's something to think about. That's all I ask of people, is just open your mind slightly and consider. Just consider.
And why is that so important to you?
I don't know. I was just born like that.
Interesting.
I just came in like that. My dad used to say, "Oh, you're so bloody minded," and I'm like, "Yep, I made a career out of it." I don't know.
Do you believe that things in the world speak to us? Do you believe our workplace speaks to us? Do you believe the earth is speaking to us right now? Do you believe that the environment is speaking to us? Do you believe the social issues that we're involved in are speaking to us?
Could you elaborate on what you mean by speaking to us?
Okay, so um, let's take the body. Do you believe when there's pain in the body's trying to tell us something? Do you
Yeah.
believe do you believe when the environment is suffering, the environment's trying to tell us something?
I,
Let me.
I tend not to kind of like humanize it. I'm not one of these kind of new agey people anymore. I used to be. I was like all kind of, but I tend to be much more pragmatic and just look around at the practicalities. Yeah, the earth is not, I don't look at a volcano and go, oh, the earth is spewing out whatever, or, trying to get our attention. I'm not one of those people. No.
What do you look and see when you see a volcano going off?
Just this is part of life. The earth, like you said a minute ago, the earth is doing very nicely without us. And I certainly believe that man is adding to the environmental catastrophe.
Okay.
I certainly think that, by slowing down some of the greed of taking, the resources out of the earth is, and the trash that we dispense into the oceans, and the pollution. I certainly believe that man is fueling the catastrophe, but I'm not sure if the earth is speaking to us and saying, it's not
Right.
my.
Right. So, can I share a story with you?
Please.
In the course of my life, I've been fortunate enough to sit with all sorts of different people. Some of the richest people in the world. I've sat with them at their dinner tables. I've played with their kids in their living rooms. I've met their parents as I've served them dessert. They've been kind enough to ask my counsel on certain things, and very kind to give me their counsel and others. I've been lucky enough to sit with some of the top religious, spiritual people in the world as well, and be in their presence not as a student only, but as a friend around the table, sharing dinner with them, meeting their friends, meeting their disciples, meeting their people. And I've also been lucky enough to sit on street corners with some of the poorest of the poor. And I've been fortunate enough to meet some of their friends and some of their family too. And what I found from everybody is everybody, no matter what color they are, no matter how much money they have, no matter what religion they practice or don't practice, no matter what border they live behind, everybody wants to be loved and accepted. Everybody wants to be listened to and heard. Everybody wants to be acknowledged and validated. And amongst the greatest lessons that I've learned from some of these people are simply those few things. Yet the person that I think I've learned the most from in this life happens to be my daughter. And my daughter's 30 years old and she's developmentally delayed. She's not able to have a conversation like this, like you and I are having. When she speaks, people don't understand her. And so she counts on me to understand her because of how close we are. And most of the times I do understand her, but sometimes I just don't. It's not because I don't want to. It's not because I don't try. I try harder than you could ever imagine. But when I don't understand her, she'll say it louder, thinking that I probably just haven't heard her. But it's very rarely the volume that makes the difference. It's the clarity of the way she speaks. I can't get it. I can't piece it together. When she says it louder and I don't understand her, she'll throw a tantrum. But it won't necessarily be 3 minutes later after saying it louder. It could be an hour, 2 hours, a day later. It could be while we're in a store shopping. It could be while we're at a restaurant eating. It could be at a friend's house when we're just sharing together with friends and family. It could be around our dining room table. It could be at the beach. It could be while we're driving a car. And she'll go berserk. She'll throw this huge tantrum. And when that doesn't work, what she'll do is she'll come running at me and try and grab my shirt and rip it or bite me. Because she's just that frustrated that I'm assuming she's just that frustrated that I just don't get it and nobody can understand her. Son, this went on for a long time. It went on for probably about 15 years. And though I like to think of myself as a sensitive, intelligent man, I couldn't think of one thing to do to help it. I tried everything that I knew. Until one day, in the midst of her rage, I just looked at her and I said, Elisa, you know I love you so much. And you know how important it is that I understand you. I just can't understand you. I just can't understand the words that you're saying. Can you talk to me without words? Can you say to me what you're trying to say without using words? And she got this big smile on her face from the midst of her rage. And she said, I am, Daddy. And I said, you are, Daddy? What the heck does that mean? Like, why haven't you told me that? Like, how are you doing that? And she took her finger and she put it to the side of her head. And I said, you little son of a gun, have you been putting thoughts into my head? And she started to laugh, this laugh that had all of the weight of the burden of trying to be heard for all these years fall off of her. She had finally communicated to me the way she was communicating to me, and she finally heard that I heard it. And I thought I had heard it. I thought I had felt it. But I didn't even know if she was capable of thinking the thoughts that she was putting into my head. Because when people don't speak, sometimes we think they don't think. But she thought plenty. I just couldn't get it. Do you know, from that moment, she never again yelled. She never again tantrumed. She never again attacked. And I thought, I just died and went to heaven. I'm just the luckiest guy in the whole world because now I have a relationship with my daughter. And I was happy there for a couple of days until I said, hold on. I wonder if I could take what she just showed me into the marketplace. I wonder what would happen if I took this into boardrooms and into CEOs' offices. I wonder if I took it into prisons and worked with guards and inmates. I wonder what would happen if I took it into hospitals and homeless shelters. I wonder what would happen if I took it into churches and synagogues. I wonder if I took it into areas of conflict and just sat with people in the midst of their conflict and allowed this process to happen. I wondered what would happen. And you know, in every single case, what I saw is my daughter isn't different from other people. She's exactly the same. When people speak and they don't get heard, they yell. When they yell and they don't get heard, they create chaos. They try and disrupt the status quo. They try and make it painful for the process to continue. They try and just not allow it to happen. And when that doesn't work, they try to attack. They carry guns, they shoot at people, they shoot at a Times Square, they might blow up a building, they might attack a culture, they might attack people that are they think are attacking them. And I watched it happen. And this 30-year-old developmentally delayed kid who can't even say words that people understand taught me a message that if the world would practice it, would solve many of the problems that exist in the world today. If we would retrofit back to just being able to listen to what someone's trying to say when they're speaking, and if we can't understand them, if we would try and find another way that they could say it that we could understand them, they would never need to yell, they would never need to tantrum, and they would never need to attack. So I'm on a mission to start a revolution of listening. Because I believe that if we just take the time to listen to one another, a lot of the problems that exist, what's happening in this room, I'm listening to people. And what I'm finding in this room is when I listen to people, strangers no longer are strangers. And I'll do anything for a friend. And most of my friends don't believe half the things that I believe, nor do I believe half the things they believe. They've got some crazy belief systems. But I would still take a bullet for them because I love them. But if they're strangers, I wouldn't even think about it. I'd just let the bullet go right into their heart. I wouldn't stand in the way of that because I don't know them. Your thoughts?
Just the last bit that I was thinking, you know, when you, like I heard on the news some years ago about there was a terrorist attack in Melbourne, and some guy ran in amongst whatever was going on to save some of the people that were either being knifed or shot at, and he lost his life himself. There are so many people who would take a bullet for a stranger.
Yeah.
Or, you know, when you see something happening, what do you do? But I also was thinking about, you know, the stuff that's going on in the mind. I remember Osho, he used to have like dental surgery. And funny that so much of this Osho stuff is coming up. There's more to my life than that, but it has certainly influenced many of the thoughts that I've had about and the way I look at life. But he was in the dental chair, and his secretary and his assistant were in the room as well. And he, at some point, turned to them and he said, "Stop talking." And they're like, "You're not saying anything." He said, "No, stop talking." And then it was silent again. And he said, "Stop talking." And it's just all the mental stuff that's going on as well. You know, my mission, people say to me, "Oh, you're so peaceful." Holy moly, like you said in the beginning, I have not always been like this, but I've had an opportunity to express myself. I've had an opportunity to be myself, warts and all. I've had an opportunity to learn to love myself, warts and all. And it's been because people outside of me loved me back to health, but it's also because I've had the space to do that, you know, through the life that I've lived. And it was, you know, I paid dearly for it in many ways. But at the same time, the result is now that I do have a tribe of people around me, like you said. I mean, like, my environment is very loving. I have amazing people around me, not just physically, but through social media. where I feel like I have the absolute space to be listened to and to be heard and to listen to others, because I don't judge them.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't necessarily like everybody, but you know, we're human. We have warts.
So if you had 2 minutes, you've said a lot already. But
I'll
if
go
you had,
away for the rest of the day, though. I go for a walk and just be silent.
okay, nice. If you have 2 minutes to share your heart and soul with the world, not with the thought of trying to change them or help them or fix them, but just with the thought of putting out a vibration that in that vibration welcomes them in, what would you say to them?
I'd probably just say we need to sit in silence. There's no words in the end. When it all comes down to it, take time each day to sit in silence, either with your eyes closed or go and find a beautiful place and contemplate a flower. I mean, I'm shocked by what I'm saying right now, and I can feel the tears coming, but we make everything so freaking important.
Yeah.
Just be here now. Not original, in the now. What is that? You know,
Yeah.
my 2 minutes curtailed into 30 seconds.
I love it. I love it. If people want more of you, which they probably will, how would they get in touch with you?
Mainly through Facebook. I don't have a website.
Okay.
I mean, I have a website that basically has my business links on it. I'm part of an online platform, which I'm very happy to talk about if somebody wants to know more about it. But it really is a platform where we encourage people to express themselves, to build a brand, if you like, through expressing who they are, so that they attract more people to them. It's an art and a science, but it's something that I really feel very passionate about. So
Beautiful.
through social media, mainly Facebook.
Will you do me a favor when we get off of this call to send me those links to your Facebook and your social media and your website if you
Sure.
choose to, and
Sure.
also send me a headshot of you so that I can put the cover up of the episode. I want to thank you for being here with us today. I want to thank you for taking a risk and talking to this imperfect stranger, and for spending your time with me and having this time together. And I want to thank those of you who have watched the show and listened to the show, for continuing to watch, or for coming for the first time, or for having a friend tell you about it and taking a chance and watching us. If you like it and you want to, share it with somebody. If you don't want to, it's also fine. Do what you want, do what you love to do. The way things grow is by people finding out about things that other people didn't know were available. But the way things really get known is when it's time for them to know and something happens. So I'm not really worried about it. Whatever feels right to you, go ahead and do it. What I would like to invite you to do is look what happens in about 35 to 45 to 55 to 65 minutes, depending on the length of a conversation that we have. Sun came in as someone I didn't know. She's walking out as someone I would love to have more conversations with. Open up the space in your life and invite some people that you don't have any idea who they are to have a conversation, to listen to them. Speak less and listen more. Allow them to tell you a little bit about themselves and see what happens. This room for me has been a magic room. People have gone through beautiful, beautiful things. And the alchemy of this room is it's made unknown people known, not only to them, to me, to the strangers that listen with me, but sometimes even to themselves. People have said things about themselves that they didn't even realize they were saying. You can do it just like I can do it. Nothing special about listening to somebody. All we got to do is just listen to them. You don't need a degree. You don't need to be a minister in a church. You don't need to follow a religious organization. All you need to do is have a heart and listen. Is there any short thing left that you would like to say before we close out the show that I didn't give you a chance to say?
I think it's time for me to revive my own conscious conversations. So
I
that's
love that.
something which was very similar to this. Just not having a script, just inviting people that I find interesting and want to know more about, and just having a platform to talk, to chat. So, and questions come from the last thing. It's a conversation.
Yes.
So thank you. So enjoyed it.
Absolutely. That's the biggest compliment. I hope you and thousands more will start up their own conscious conversations. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for giving the most valuable thing that you could give to us, which is your time.
Our time. Thank you.
And thank you so much. And until the next stranger comes in, don't be a stranger. Come back often. Okay. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Ciao.